Adam Luckett returns to the show. He's pretty high on Kentucky. I love when we get these dueling interviews and each side confident in the team that they cover and they know best. So let's kick it over to Adam. Some really great stuff from Adam. Hey, we're pleased to once again be joined by Adam Luckett, one of the best out there. You know him, Kentucky Sports Radio. And if you're not already checking out the 11 Personnel podcast he does with Nick Roush, one of the best out there. Adam, thank you for joining me. I really appreciate you.
Mike, thanks for having me on, man. Happy Wednesday, happy week 5, and happy October. I mean, it'll be October here Saturday, so the season is it's moving along fast like it always does.
Yeah, no doubt. And you know, I got you on here because I want to talk this Ole Miss game, of course. It's such a huge game. But before we get to that, I wanted to ask you this. Does Will Levis, does he deserve to be in this Heisman conversation? Because, you're seeing Hendon Hooker. You're seeing, obviously, Bryce Young. I've even threw KJ Jefferson out there. You're seeing a lot of people get touted as Heisman contenders. But you've not seen Will Levis, even though he's carrying that football team. Does he deserve that? Or are you still waiting for him to maybe, if he gets a big win on Saturday, for that conversation to get rolling?
I think it's a little early for that. I think he's got to have a big game on a big stage. Florida game, I thought he played well, but it wasn't just like total takeover. I mean, really in the second half, it was Kentucky's defense, right, and they got some run game success going in the second half, so they could play the old Mark Stoops special: ball control, protect your defense, win the game ugly. So he needs to do it on the big stage, but I think for Kentucky supporters, Will Levis supporters, believers in Will Levis, like, he's checked every box, I think, to this point. Like, you see the growth. You're seeing him hit on more big plays, being able to use that arm strength. You're seeing him getting a lot of different looks from defense and succeeding against them. You're seeing him succeed with young receivers. Like, he's checked every box so far, and to project moving forward, you could see him definitely end up being one of the top quarterbacks in the country, I think, in November, where you're talking about him in that light. But as of right now, he just hasn't, the Heisman, it's all about the moments, right? It'd be too early for Hendon Hooker if he didn't have that Florida game. If Tennessee would have played UT Martin last week, right? It would have been probably too early for Hooker, but he had the moment last week. So I think it's a bit early, but I think if it keeps going in this same direction, he's going to be right there at the end as one of the better quarterbacks in the country.
Now, one of the biggest storylines, Adam, heading into this Kentucky-Ole Miss game, Chris Rodriguez back on the field. Are you anticipating that he has a big game right out the gate, or do you think this is going to take a week or two for him to see the Chris Rodriguez, maybe the best running back in the SEC, if not the country, that caliber of a player on the field?
Let's start off here. Like, the O-line has issues. Like, they are struggling. They do have issues. But, Mike, there's been a big drop-off from Kavosiey Smoke in Kentucky's tailback room. Like, significant, in my opinion. You have to go back to week 1. They enter the season without Rodriguez. Their number 2 and number 3 backs, Ramon Jefferson and Jaton McClain, get injured in that game. Jefferson, who was kind of a camp star for Kentucky, was a big add, tore his ACL. He's out for the year after 2 snaps. He was kind of their Rodriguez insurance policy. They lost him. McClain, who's kind of their multi-positional third down back, can do a lot of things. They lost him. He didn't return until last week. So they just had a big drop-off. I think Kavosiey Smoke has done some good things on the ground. Nothing super flashy, but he's right at 5 yards per rush, which is fine for him. It's kind of his career averages. But after him, it's just been a huge drop-off at the running back position. So you get an all-SEC tailback back. You get a quality number 2 in Kavosiey Smoke. You get a guy in Jaton McClain back who can do some third down back type things. Offensive line has issues, but the running game's going to be better because I just think they're not going to have the drop-off at that position. And Rodriguez is the best at creating something out of nothing. He's the best at turning a tackle for loss into a 3-yard gain, a 3-yard gain into an 8-yard gain. And I think that's going to be desperately needed, and I think it's going to open up a lot for their offense. Do I think Kentucky's going to be the dominant run game we've seen in the past? No. But I don't think it's as bad as it's looked so far. I think he'll have an immediate impact, and it's gonna open up a lot of things, I think, for Rich Gangarello's offense.
Now, you mentioned that offensive line. That has been a big red flag early. But do you have confidence? Mark Stoops, I mean, that's all they do is produce elite offensive lines there in Lexington, better than anybody in the SEC. Coach Zach Yenser, do you got confidence that they can turn that unit around by the end of the season, or is this just who Kentucky's offensive line is?
I'm very much in the wait and see camp there. I think it's important to note third offensive line coach in 3 years, Mike. Third play caller in 3 years. Like, that's a lot of turnover. You lost a lot of star power on that offensive line. They probably needed a transfer tackle. They didn't get one. And so they're just in a rough little spot here. Now, they have 5 guys playing new positions. Like Eli Cox played right guard last year. He's sliding over to center. Kenneth Orsi's played left guard his whole career. He's now playing left tackle. Jeremy Flax is a first-time starter at right tackle. Tayshawn Manning, kind of the same position, but he's new. He transferred from Auburn. Jagger Burton's a redshirt freshman, was a blue chip recruit out of Lexington. He's a brand new left guard. So, like, they just need to gel together. You go back to fall and spring camp, that room was really hurt by the injury bug. They had multiple guys miss like week to 2 weeks in fall camp where they really just didn't get to play together. And then Tayshawn Manning's been in and out of the lineup with a foot injury. There's just been a lot there, a lot of moving parts, and they haven't had their bell cow running back. Well, they get their bell cow running back now. They've got some games under the belt. Now you want to see them start to make some strides. I think there's been flashes, moments. The second half of Florida is obviously there. I think the protection has looked better in recent weeks. I think you look at the raw stats and you see the sack numbers. A lot of those are on Levis for not getting rid of the ball, for trying to hang in there and not hitting his check down. So he's got to get better about getting rid of the football. But, like, let's call it what it is, it's not going to be a great offensive line this year. They're just kind of scrapping it together. And hopefully as they start to play more and they get this running game going, you'll start to see some improved play. But like I said at the beginning, it's very much wait and see for me on my end.
How impressed have you been with this receiving core? Because I know, they bring in some touted guys, Dane Key, Barian Brown, but Adam, the entire SEC brings in 4-star receivers. And every offseason, fans tell me, oh, we got this guy. But it usually takes time for a receiver to make an impact in the SEC. But these guys, no time at all. They're some of the best young talent in the SEC. Are they overachieving in your eyes, or is this what you anticipated?
For Tavian Robinson, I think he was very overlooked, Mike, in the transfer portal. I think you saw people do rankings. There were guys ahead of him that should not have been ahead of him. Look at Hendon Hooker, right? Like, look what he's doing in that Virginia Tech offense. Could hardly get anything going with him. There was some coaching issues with Justin Fuente there in Virginia Tech. Last year, they had a quarterback who couldn't throw it more than 10 yards down the field. But he made plays since he was a freshman. So I'm not surprised to see this with him. This is what I saw on tape and what I heard from sources in the program. Like, he's a difference maker. Like, he's going to be pushing for all SEC when the time comes. The surprise is, like, these freshmen, Dane Key and Barian Brown, they are really talented, but the way they've been – I thought Brown could really have a role just because of the speed element he brings. I mean, it's special when he has the ball in space. The biggest development has probably been Dane Key as a true freshman to come in, play X receiver, and to really be advanced for this stage in his game. I don't know if he had the speed to make vertical plays. He went and made a play on a post ball against Florida. He's shown up every week. He's made big explosive plays over the middle, outside. So, yeah, I think, like, what he's shown us so far, I think he's going to continue to do that. And they got a quarterback too. I mean, that makes a big difference when you got the quarterback. It makes their job easier. So I don't think that's going to slow down for them anytime soon. I still think they're going to have a lot of success with those guys. But I do think it starts with Tavian Robinson. Like, he is a dude in the slot, and they're going to be able to depend on him throughout the season.
How do you anticipate this Kentucky defense holding up against the Ole Miss running attack, and without J.J. Weaver, possibly Mark Stoops seemed kind of doubtful that Weaver would be able to play in this game?
Yeah. I'm going to take you back a year, Mike. Kentucky hosted Florida last year. Florida had the number one running game in the country outside of service academies. Remember, Emory Jones is running it all over the place. They're back. They had a three-headed monster at tailback. David Pierce averaging over 300 yards on the ground. They came into Lexington, and Kentucky stoned them and kind of gave the blueprint. You go back 2 years ago. Ole Miss had a really good running game that first year. Kentucky held them under their season average. I do not think Ole Miss is going to come in here and run for 300 yards on Saturday. I think Kentucky is going to hold up on the front, and they're going to make Jackson Dart beat them through the air. I think Ole Miss is going to have success on the ground. I don't think you're not totally stopping them, but I think they're going to limit them. Weaver is a significant loss, but I didn't know how much they could play him and Jordan Wright together this week because of the spread offense. You're going to have to get nickel. True freshman Alex Safari is kind of their nickel player. He's been really, really good. He's been one of the better defensive players this season, which has been another big surprise. Just overall, Kentucky in that last signing class, I mean, it's been a home run. They've got some difference makers. In Deion Walker is one of the biggest ones, right? I mean, he's really flashed there at defensive tackle. So for this game, I think Kentucky's going to hold up well. I think it's going to be important for them to survive the early haymakers. You remember what happened against Tennessee last year. They looked up and they had only played 9 snaps and they already given up 21 points. So for them, it's going to be to settle in, make Kiffin, throw all the wrinkles he's out early, and then just play football after that once you get used to the tempo and how this game's going to go. I think for Kentucky, it's that, and then once you settle in, making Dart beat you. I don't think he's going to get as loose as he has on some of those zone reads against Tulsa and Georgia Tech and all that. And Kentucky's going to have to make him make throws. And they showed against Florida that they like their chances when they can make a quarterback who's young, but with a lot of talent, but young. They can make them struggle against them. So I think that's the blueprint for Kentucky's defense.
Right. And speaking of Jackson Dart, do you consider him basically just the ultimate wild card in this game? Like if he has a good game, maybe they win. But I just spoke with Neil McCready. He covers Ole Miss, and I asked him, does Lane Kiffin trust Jackson Dart to win a ball game? He says they won't know till Saturday. So, yeah. I mean, not even they know but kind of you already hit on it. I mean, that's the key to the game probably.
Yeah, he's a total wild. You could tell me he threw for 320 yards, made some crazy throws, or you could tell me he threw 4 interceptions. I could believe both. We don't really know. He's got some big-time tools. I think you see it, a live arm. He can make plays off script, and you've even heard Kiffin talk about it. The decision making, seems like it's really scary over there. They don't. We've heard Kiffin say, I think, don't make any catastrophic or game changing plays. So they are, I think, worried about that. And the other thing is, the Ole Miss receivers, Malik Heath wasn't really pushing for playing, or he was playing at Mississippi State, but he wasn't heavily involved. And now he's their number one guy. He leads them in targets. That's surprising. So for me at receiver, I don't think there's anything that scares you. Jordan Watkins is one that leads them in third in snaps, I think. Kentucky's already seen him at Louisville. They've recruited him. They know him pretty well. I just think if Kentucky can go in there, stop the run, and they're not going to totally stop the run, but limit the run game, make Dart beat them. I think I think the defense is really going to like their chances in this ball game, in this matchup.
Yeah. One guy that you didn't mention there, though, although he's going up against strength of Kentucky, their linebackers, Michael Trigg, named to know for sure in that ball game. But all right, Adam, really appreciate your time. Last thing for you. You got a prediction? Who wins here? Kentucky at Ole Miss Saturday.
Yeah, I think Ole Miss gets out to an early lead, early start. Kentucky settles in. It's a close game at half. I think Kentucky's defense has another strong performance in the second half. I think Kentucky pulls away late. I'm not sure about how much, but I just think Kentucky's going to win this game. There's not much known about Ole Miss. They are a total wild card to me. They were in the preseason because of all these transfers. You could have told me they've been a top 10 team. You could have told me they finished last place in the West, and I would have believed everyone. It's probably somewhere in the middle. So I think Kentucky, I think they go in there. I think Levis has a good game. They get enough out of Rodriguez in the run game. They figure it out on offense after maybe a slow start, and I think they get a big win on the road.
Oh, wait, one more question. I'm sorry. Is Kentucky a legitimate top 10 right now in your mind, or do they still got to prove that to you?
Yeah. They would be, if I came up with power rankings, they would probably be borderline top 10. I think top 15 floor. I think they're firmly a top 15 team. You can get into the semantics of who's better than this, when the fact of the matter is teams 4 through 20 Mike are all in the same. They're all hanging out in the same neighborhood.
Right.
So, yeah, maybe. But Kentucky's got a huge wild card. They get one of the best running backs in the country back, and they've got an NFL quarterback who's playing at a high level right now, and they got a defense that's played at a top 10-ish level to start the season. There's a recipe there for where they could be a top 10 team. And so we'll have to see how it shakes out.
All right, Adam, before you go, tell the audience where to find all your work.
Yeah, KentuckySportsRadio.com, part of the On3 network. Check us out, KentuckySportsRadio.com or On3.com. 11 Personnel Podcast live every Wednesday night at 7 on YouTube. KSR Football Podcast on Monday. Got everything going on the YouTube channel, so check that out. And on Twitter at Adam Luckett KSR.
All right, so there you got it. Hey, I don't want to call these guys homers because they're true professionals, but they cover their respective programs, both liking the odds, which should give you an indication of just what a fight we're in for here Saturday, 11 o'clock Central, noon Eastern, when Kentucky travels to Ole Miss